Now that we've understood how to factor and solve quadratics by looking at this, the question is, when I'm given questions, if I put them in Desmos, I'm going to make it into a graph so I can do it by looking at it. These will be the steps to follow in order to do that. So you type the function into Desmos, you make the question look like factoring or solving by inspection because you can see the graph. The important thing is to make sure you're always checking your answer, because if a graph doesn't match, you have to do one last thing on step number 5. So we're going to go through them. As I do my example, you're going to do your example. So I'm going to alternate examples. I do example 1, you do example 2. I do example 3, you do example 4. I do example 5, you do example 6, and I'm going to do example 7. Okay, so we're just going to alternate examples. So as I type mine into Desmos, you're typing yours. So I'm just checking to see, are you able to follow? All right, so the first step says you're going to type it into Desmos and make the question factor and solving by inspection. So again, I'm typing in my question, you're typing in example 2. So as I type in my example 1, you're typing in example 2. So pause the video if you need to make sure we're at the same spot. All right, so I've typed in mine. Pause the video if you've not finished typing in yours. All right, so once we've typed in your function, it says click the x-intercepts, the zeros, the roots, the solutions. If it's a decimal, make it a fraction. So I'm going to click mine. I have 2 solutions. Mine, one is a decimal and one is a fraction. All right, so again, click yours. If you are solving, so in this table, what do I want? I want both. I want you to solve it and I want you to tell me factored form. So if you were solving it, what does that look like? If you were writing it in factored form, what does that look like? All right, so if solving x equals that root and x equals the other root is the answer. If it crosses only one time, x equals that root is the answer. So mine crosses twice, so x equals this and x equals that is the answer. However, if it is a fraction, and I don't think I wrote those notes here, but it's on the top one. Let me read. Okay. I guess I didn't write it out. Okay, so just don't write the answer. I'll add that into the notes. If it's a fraction, it needs to be, if it's a decimal, it needs to be written as a fraction. Okay, so I'm going to put it in my first one right here. I'm going to convert this into a fraction. So it's negative 0.16 repeating. Now, it's important to note that the decimal got tired of writing the 666 and wrote the 7 at the end because the 6 makes this a 7. So I'm going to keep repeating the 6, not the 7. So I'm going to hold the 6 down. It's going to go away and come back as a fraction that I can recognize. So this is one of my solutions, x equals negative 1 over 6. My other solution is x equals 1. All right, so I've got my 2, if solving x equals that root and x equals the other root. Okay, so I've got both. All right, so for me, x equals negative 1 over 6, and x is also x equals, I think it was positive 1. Yeah, positive 1. Okay, so x is equal to negative 1 over 6 and x equals positive 1. Please copy my answer down, but you should also now have an answer for right here. All right, now that is if you're looking for your solutions. Now I want to write my factored form. Factoring, opposite sign of solve in the parentheses. If x isn't a fraction, then write your answer this way. If it is a fraction, then write your answer this way. Okay, so let's start with the one that isn't. So that's going to be 1. And every answer should be written in here. Okay, every answer should be written in here. So factored form is going to have 2 parentheses. One is one of my solutions. So if it isn't a fraction, write your answer this way. X plus left whole number, x plus right whole number. Okay, so for me, just remember opposite sign in solve. Opposite sign of solve in the parentheses. So this is 1, so it's going to be minus 1. So it's going to be minus 1. If it is a fraction, then write your answer this way. The denominator goes before the x and then the numerator. So here's my 6. That's going to go before the x, so it's going to be 6x. And then change the opposite. So now you have minus 1 left. Opposite of that is plus 1. And if you do this correctly, it's going to. Now, here's a note that we have to take into account. If your question has an equal sign, you need to make sure your answer also has an equal sign. So because there's an equal sign here, in order for it to match, it also must have an equal sign here. Now, what am I going to set it equal to? Because factored form, you set it equal to 0. So if your answer has if your question is an equal sign, you put an equal sign in the answer. If your question does not have an equal sign, you don't put an equal sign in your answer. That's how you check if you're correct. So this is correct because it matches, right? So my question with an equal sign matches my answer with an equal sign. Now, when I write my answers here, I do not need to put the equal sign there. So factored form is just asking, what does that look like with the 2 parentheses? It looks like this. All right, so that's factored form. If I solve that equal to 0 like I did in the previous video, like here, okay, if I solve that, what you're going to find is that these are the solutions you're going to get. Because if I go backwards, remember, one of these is getting set equal to 0. So let's say this is equal to 0. You're going to add 1 on both sides, so x equals 1 is a solution. Set this equal to 0, subtract 1 to both sides, so it's going to be negative 1, and then finally divide by 6. So you can go forwards or you can go backwards. All right, but again, putting it in the calculator, making sure it matches to make sure your answer is correct. So now you should have something written here and something written here. All right, so I'm going to do example 3. As I do example 3, please go ahead and do example 4. And of course, it wouldn't recognize the k's or the n's, so just use x's. So again, type in your equation into Desmos. This time, because there's no equal, when I put in my answers, in order for them to match, it also needs not to have an equal sign. So please go ahead and pause the video and type yours in. All right, so again, let's zoom in so we can see our solutions. And if you can't see it, zoom out, hit home, and see here my 2 solutions. So one is a decimal. So remember, we're going to type in the decimals in here. Make it equal to a fraction. All right, and again, we're just following the notes that we already have. So if solving, x is that root and x is the other root. If it's crosses only one time, then x is the root, is the answer squared, actually. So let me make sure we write that note, answer squared. All right, make any decimals into fractions. Okay, so these are my solutions. So x equals negative 3 over 5 and x equals 1. Make sure that when you write your answers down that you're using the letter in the question. I'm going to fix mine right at the end. So this should be k equals negative 3 over 5 and k equals 1. Then to get it into factored form, all right, so if factoring, opposite sign of solve in the parentheses. So we're going to put it in the parentheses. If you have a fraction, then write your answer as the denominator before the x and then your numerator. So I'm going to take the 5 over before the x. So this is going to be 5x. Then what do I have left? Minus 3. And remember, it has to be the opposite sign because x inside is always opposite. So that's going to be plus 3. All right. So that's that one. And then this one is just going to be a whole number. If it's a whole number, you just write in x plus that whole number or x minus that whole number. So in this case, it's 1. So we're going to change that to x minus 1. All right. Now here's the issue. There's no equal sign there. There's no equal sign there, but my graphs are not matching. So I said in the very beginning of this video, if the graphs do not match and you've matched the questions with the answer, it's because there is a GCF. What is a GCF? There's the greatest common denominator. So what you're going to do is if the graph doesn't match, factor out the GCF if you can, all right, if you're able to. So type GCF. So I'm going to type GCF and then parentheses. And then it says put in the numbers separated by commas, just the numbers. So what is the number? Mine is 10, comma, what's my next number? Negative 4. Comma, what's my last number? Negative 6. And it's going to tell you the GCF is equal to 2. So now that I have that, what do I do? Or how do I write it? So if we look over here, whether your factoring is a fraction or not a fraction, you just put the GCF one time in the very front. So my GCF is 2, so I'm just going to put it one time in the very front. All right, does it match now? Yes, then this is my answer. So once again, you should have been doing yours at the same time as mine. The only reason this one did not match is because it had a GCF. So yours should also have a GCF, and you're writing down your solutions, or rather your factored form with the GCF at the very front. Okay. All right, so you should have written out example 4. So now I'm going to do example 5. And again, instead of using a, I'm just going to use x. So this is x squared minus 25. Okay. And these are just the different kinds of questions that you can get. All right, so zoom out so till you see the graph. So my two solutions are positive 5 and negative 5. So I can write that in already. So my two solutions are x equals negative 5 and x equals positive 5. All right, then putting them in the parentheses, since it's not a fraction, it's just x equals, the minus 5 becomes positive 5 and the positive 5 becomes minus 5. And again, you can see that we are matching. All right, so that's both finding the x-intercepts, the roots or the zeros, as well as writing it in factored form. Now, I am going to show you how to do this one by hand because it actually has a very important step, but you should have also done your example 6. So now I'm going to show you example 7, and I'm going to show you, well, let's see whether it does work out. Let's see, 16 minus 4x squared. All right, and then get rid of that. So my solutions are minus 2 and positive 2. So minus 2 becomes positive 2, and positive 2 becomes minus. But the graphs don't match. They look like they go through the, and why are they both red? Let's change this. So hold that down and change the color or not. There we go. All right, it looks like they're right in terms of where they're going through as a solution, but they don't match. So I'm going to actually teach you how to do this by hand. This is something called difference of squares. So these three examples are called difference of squares. Okay, so if they turn the order around, it's going to mess up Desmos. But if they keep the order, it still works. So what I mean by that is if they always put the x squared first, then it's okay. If they don't, then it's not okay. So I'm going to show you how to do it by hand. All right, this is what it means. The difference of squares saying that squares means you can take the square root of 16, you can take the square root of 4. So again, different of perfect squares. So this is 16. And this is 4. So if you're able to take the perfect square of each of both of the terms and it's separated by a negative, the answer is go ahead and do it. And your answer is going to be the square root of the first one, which is 4, in both parentheses. All right. Then the square root of the second one, which is 2. And then the square root of x squared is x. So that's going to be 2x in both parentheses. And then one is going to be positive and the other is going to be negative, and the order doesn't matter. So I'm going to say it again. The difference of squares says that if you have two terms, just two terms, and you can take the square root of each term, go ahead and do it in that order and then separate it with a plus or minus. So now I'm just going to show you. So this is example 7. So this is going to be 4 plus 2x and then 4 minus 2x. All right, the solutions were the same. It was positive 2 and x is equal to negative 2. So this only affects factored form. So now I'm going to prove it to you with the examples we've already done. So according to the difference of squares, it says if you have two terms and it's separated by a negative, take the square root of the first one, which is a. So you'll see, oh, and look at that, I made a mistake. Please make sure that you're using the variables they give you. So I'm going to go ahead and correct all of these. And I hope that when you wrote yours, you didn't make my mistake. All right, so this is A. This one is R. A, R, R. All right, so correct yours if you wrote X in your answer. All right, so take the square root of the first one, which is A. So A twice. Square root of the second one, which is 5. 5 twice, and then plus and minus. All right, let me do yours. Square root of the first one, which is what? 4D. Okay, so this one is 4D, so we're going to check yours. All right, square root of the second one, which is 13. Write it in twice, and then make one positive and the other negative. Okay, so this is the difference of squares. You have two terms that you can take square root of perfectly, and they're separated by negative, meaning difference. That's what you do. All right, so I guess Desmos, you can't use it if they change that order. So now you'll know how to do it by hand if they do change the order. But if they write the squared first for you, then you can just keep going as normal. Let's practice.